Good morning, everyone. Welcome to start Monday and a new week with the Central Baltic program in our studio and launching the Central Baltic program for the period 2021 to 27. Unlike the traditional TV studio, we have the benefit of being a little bit interactive. And I have actually seen a screen with your faces popping up. And that's been a really wonderful start of the day and of this event for me. So I know that we have hundreds of people online, and I believe still some people are joining. Today, we will focus on celebrating the new program, the new Central Baltic for the upcoming period. We will look at how this program came into being, who was involved, and what did the process look like. But we will also start digging into the depths of the program, the content, and what you can expect for the future. And we do have several updates and news reserved for you at the very end, telling about what you can expect to happen in the next months. As I mentioned, I have seen several of your faces, and I have a good understanding, I think, of who might be online, but let's use one interactive possibility, and let's hear from you where you are from, who is joining us this morning, so that we get a good feeling for who we have with this morning. So you should see a question, and please give your answer in the next moments. I know we have a very good turnout, so I would imagine it takes a while for everyone to remember where they are from and then click. So we'll give a few seconds. I know it's Monday morning and it's early, and we are in a cross-border region, so you might even have been traveling over the weekend. But I think we are ready to share the result, and we have the majority from Finland, as you will see, but we also have everyone from every region, every member state well covered. We even have some other, so that is always exciting, an exciting find. But welcome to all our colleagues from Estonia, from Finland, including the Åland Islands, from Latvia and from Sweden, and also to the others, to really join in this Central Baltic family. I don't know exactly how many people we have online, but I know it is a huge number, and it is made all the more special because for the last year and a half, we have not been able to meet face to face. And even this event, we have to carry out online. But it's still nice to know that we are all here and connected and getting ahead together. In order to get a little bit more out of you and also to show the connections that we have to the new Central Baltic program, I would introduce one more poll where you will be having the possibility to share with us in which of the programming steps or processes or stages you have participated. So again, you should have a poll available and you should be able to click click away and share if you have already over these last couple of years been involved. This one should have, I hope, multiple options. And you might need to dig a little bit deep in your memory. So we take a little bit of time for that. And here we go. Now my eyesight is being tested, but not surprisingly, the results are that we have a smaller number of people from the Joint Programming Committee and Working Group. That is very, very truthful, because those were smaller groups of people. But then we had a very high turnout for the thematic seminars and public hearings. So we have more than 20% of you have been involved in those. Yes, and that is a good number. I should also think several of you were involved in several of those. So this is really what to be expected, because we have, as we will go through shortly, and in as a quick overview, we have had a lot of steps of the process and a lot of points for participation. And at every stage, I think we have really seen a very good outcome and a very high interest in our program, which has been really delightful. Because the whole process of drafting the new program for the upcoming years has been a participatory process, and it has been of utmost importance to have as many of you as possible involved and as much of the expertise of our regions involved. One thing that we also have a benefit in our interactive studio is that we are able to get questions from the audience. So I would really encourage you to use the chat option and send in any questions you have. We will try to cover some of them during this event today, and we will also reply then and use your questions as input later on in the process, and keep answers coming. This was the first warm-up, and we will now move on to launching the program and really starting to look into how the program came into being. So in a formal and official note, it is really my pleasure to welcome you to the launch event of the Central Baltic program for the period 2021 to 27. The reason why we can be here today is that a lot of people, most of you, have been working hard for close to 2 years getting the program up and running. And by now we have approvals from all the national and Åland governments of all our member states and Åland to the program document. And that is a huge milestone in this process. As I said, we have really been on this journey for more or less 2 years. So in this next half an hour-ish or a little bit less, we will revisit some parts of that journey and see how the program came into being. You may very well know that the Central Baltic program for the upcoming period is by no means the first Central Baltic, but we build on a long history. We have had both the 2007-2013 periods, and then most recently and still ongoing, the 2014 to 2020 periods. I have been, I must admit, involved in all of those. So my Central Baltic history is surprisingly long. And I can say that I have seen the cycle of our program, and I have seen it grow. I have seen the cooperation grow, the trust being built from meeting to meeting and over the different programming periods and the programming stages. And I've also seen the program content grow and develop. And I must say it's, for me personally, has been a wonderful journey to always see how we are moving step by step in the right direction and have been moving towards a really result-orientated and efficient and really meaningful program. And I would say that this groundwork that we started actually in 2006, when the first negotiations on the Central Baltic program started, that groundwork proved in this programming period to be more important than ever. And it had such meaning because, as you know, suddenly the whole world went online and we essentially had to do the whole programming online. But we will not get quite ahead of things. I will tell about how the programming started. And we managed to start it in live meetings. In live meetings with the member state and Åland representatives discussing a so-called mandate letter. That has been a tradition in the Central Baltic program across the periods, that our member states and Åland meet and define the principles and the key things that they want to get out of the new program. And this mandate letter negotiation started the process, and when the main principles had been laid out, the member states and Åland gave the Regional Council of Southwest Finland the mandate to start preparations for being a managing authority and to launch the whole process. And that process really started some 2 years ago. Leading on to, or from the mandate letter, we started putting together the composition of the programming team. You saw in the poll that we started with a joint programming committee, and that meeting we managed to have in Helsinki on the 10th of March, a year and a half ago. And in that meeting, the mood was good, feelings and spirits were high, and everyone was keen to kick off the process. And we had very good discussions on what the program should look like, what should be the defining principles, also what would be the working methods, that there should be a working group to support and define the content. I remember quite clearly that we had heard about something called COVID or Corona, and we were even a little bit hesitant about meeting in Helsinki, but still that meeting was held, and we arranged. At the end of the meeting, we arranged for meetings to be held later that spring. I think we prepared a calendar up until summer for both the Joint Programming Committee and the working group. And then, of course, 2 days after this meeting, the whole world essentially shut down, and we were stuck doing cross-border cooperation online. And when I say we, I mean, as you saw from the poll, or as you see from the list of participants, that we have a huge group of people. So at this stage, we will join forces with and join up with a few of those people who were involved in this process. And we can hear their views on how we got here. So the first person that we will be joining up with is Philippe Reinhog from Sweden, from Gotland. So I hope we have... Good morning, Philippe. So glad to have you there, and thank you for joining in. Why did you want to join the programming? Why is Central Baltic important to you?
Well, I think that the history of cooperation in the Baltic Sea is long, and we have a common future. And in order for us to... Sorry, there's some background noise. In order for us to actually face the challenges ahead in different aspects, I think that we need to cooperate, and there's also a higher value that EU needs to be more visible in our everyday life. We have a need for a stronger regional development in Estonia, in Latvia, Sweden, and Finland, and including Åland. And EU is actually serving us that possibility with the Interreg Central Baltic program. So I think it's important that we build on the lessons learned during the past program periods, and build a really strong program for this period.
So that, yeah, and you have also been involved in the previous period, and you mentioned that it is important that we really launch a strong program. What would you say, in your opinion, when this programming was launched, what do you think were the lessons that we should learn, and how do we really get to a strong program?
I believe that there's two really strong aspects to that, and the first one is to do what we have done now, and to really work bottom up. We need to develop a strong program for the different actors that are active in our regions. And to meet the needs of them where they stand and where we stand. But also I think that, as you mentioned earlier, that the results-oriented process, that we need to emphasize even stronger on that, because we know that the Commission has questioned these programs, and occasionally also the national states. And I believe that they're wrong, but I think that we really need to learn to show the results from the cross-border cooperation in the Interreg programs.
Yeah, I think you're touching on really important things, and I think when you say that we need to really show the results, of course that's something where I think my team and my colleagues will have a very important role, and we take on that challenge, certainly. But then I also want to encourage and hope that we can also, and we will cooperate also on this in the future, because like you said, the regions are really at the heart of this program. So I hope that through our efforts, we will be able to show those results, and then they can echo further in the results. So I know we will be cooperating throughout the program to also spread those results further.
And I think that we as regional politicians and stakeholders in the program also have a duty and a job to do, to take home the results and to show them in different occasions where we can talk about the importance of these EU programs.
Yeah. Exactly, and we will keep feeding you with material. At this stage, I think also maybe a very good bridge to the history of the Central Baltic program is the 2014 to 20 period, where results are popping up all the time, and we really see, in my opinion, that this result orientation is really bringing fruit and bringing what we expected. So we really see projects living on even after the funding has ended, and we see really tangible, real results. And I think that is something where the legacy will certainly continue for the 21-27 program, and that is quite exciting already at this stage to know that that's something that will happen in the next years. Of course, in the next stage, we will also talk about the path, how to get there. Do you have any other last wishes to us?
Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that there is an emphasis on the climate challenge in the coming program, and I think that, and I salute and applaud you for bringing that into it. I think that's the most, of course, challenge that we face right now, and it's also very urgent. So I think that has to be the umbrella for the program, to how to be together in cooperation can cut our emissions swiftly.
Yes, thank you. That was a very good. I mean, what else can one add to that? So I think with those words and that encouragement, we thank you, Philippe, for your participation in the process and for these words and also this inspiration to us all to keep working.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No, of course, we're always happy to have you and everyone else involved. From there, I will take us a little bit further in the process. So, as I mentioned, the programming work had to go online completely, and that, of course, I think for all of us was quite a shock and a learning curve, quite a steep one. I don't think we, at the beginning, felt, well, I don't think anyone, first of all, knew how long this would take, but also I think we didn't have the experience of even organizing an online meeting, let alone feeling prepared to do a strategy process for a period of almost 10 years and a budget of what we then thought approximately 100 million. So the learning curve was steep, but all in all, I think we managed very well, and we picked up as we went along, and our stakeholders and our committee members learned a lot. And in the end, I think we were utterly successful. And this is where I come back to the point of how important it was that we had the experience and the trust and the cooperation built essentially for 15 years. And I think that really was crucial in managing this process. In total, the programming process took 6 working group meetings, indeed all held online. Also a lot of homework and paperwork and studying and sending comments back and forth took place, and 8 joint programming committee meetings, also with a lot of discussions beforehand and afterwards and updating materials. But one of the most important steps I would think in the whole process was the so-called thematic events. So once the joint programming committee had made the first selection of themes for the new program based on analyses from our regions and homework indeed from the working group. We tested those ideas with stakeholders and experts in the region. We arranged, in this case, thematic events in all our member states and Åland, and somehow we arranged them at the very lucky time where we actually managed to have 4 out of the 5 as live events. That, of course, in COVID times added a new kind of stress. I remember how we were quite nervous with colleagues, both the 2 weeks prior and after the live events, because at this stage you really couldn't be sure how safe live was, and we certainly didn't want to associate Central Baltic with some kind of super spreader event. So that was the nervous part of the thematic seminars, but the exhilarating and exciting and fun and constructive part of it, luckily, was the dominating one. So I think it's very safe to say that the thematic seminars gave the whole programming a real boost and gave our team a lot of energy, and I think also for those participating in the seminars, they were an energy booster, because it was a possibility for people in the region to meet, to really discuss in depth the themes that were foreseen for the new program, and to give feedback on those. The good thing about the events also was that the thematic seminars really gave us the confidence that programming was on a good track. We tested the pre-selected themes of the working group work and got basically unanimous and strong votes of confidence and comments that these themes are relevant for the region, for cross-border cooperation, and it does make sense to continue with this. We also got a lot of practical input that was incorporated into the thinking and planning and even the draft program document. So with this new energy, the working group continued to push forward, and the joint programming committee continued its work. And the second big push was then the public hearings in the spring, where we had altogether a few hundred people joining, again, online events, and around 50 people submitting written feedback, which all has been taken into account in the programming work and really led to updates still in the program document. One of the people, again, who was involved in these processes and who will next link with is Toni Vanhala from the region of Kymenlaakso. So Toni, maybe you can introduce yourself very briefly, and then also the same question basically as to Philippe: why is the Central Baltic program important to you, and why did you join the programming work?
Thank you, Merika, and very good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see familiar faces and names on the Zoom list, and thank you for the invitation for this event. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Yes, my name is Toni Vanhala, and I'm nowadays working in a regional development company called Kursor in Kotka-Hamina region in Kymenlaakso in southeastern Finland. And I participated in the programming as a representative of the regional council of Kymenlaakso, which was my previous job. So I was part of the programming committee in this future program, as well as the 2 past programs. And taking part in this programming was, of course, part of my job. But in general, it is, of course, important for a region or a country to increase cooperation over the borders, and especially remembering the past where we are coming from in the Central Baltic area, but also recognizing the common challenges and also possibilities. So the Baltic Sea unites us, and what we do all around in our own shores might affect also the neighbors, and therefore cooperation is very important.
And as you mentioned, you have been involved also in the previous periods and in the programming. What has been your view on how the program has changed? Do you see improvement?
Well, yes, the program has had a very interesting development path. The Interreg cooperation started over 30 years ago, and it started with networking and people getting to know each other, and it has then moved into a more concrete way of working over the years. And the Central Baltic program, like you already mentioned, Merike, has its history for the last 15 years. It was established in 2006. It was already a rather concrete program, but the new ones are even more concrete, and that's very important. The result orientation is, I think, is the key word also in the Interreg world, and but also building trust over the years has been very important, and I think the program, with its result orientation, effective way of working, has earned its place in the EU program framework. Those people who were involved in the program development remember that we fought very hard with the European Commission to keep the program in its current geography, and we managed to safeguard it. And that's also a sign that all member states and regions around the Central Baltic area have recognized the importance of this particular program for the cooperation in this area.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for all the efforts and showing really how much the program is valued by the regions. I think that was a very important process in really kind of recognizing the value of the program and getting us to the point where we are, and to have that cooperation with the regions. But during the programming process, you actually kind of changed tables. So you're now working for a potential beneficiary. What is your take, or what is your greeting to us from that point of view?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's occasionally good for a person to make some changes in life, and for me it was time last winter to change and stop working in the regional council and start working in the regional development agency instead. Cursor has been an active player in the previous programs, an active beneficiary, and has implemented many important and successful projects. And I think it is unlikely that I myself will be a direct program beneficiary, but I will certainly encourage my colleagues who are working with these thematics, which the Central Baltic is also touching, to be active and apply for project funding, cooperate with neighbors in Estonia, Sweden, and Latvia to achieve common goals. And of course, the same applies to also all other organizations in our region, that every time I meet relevant people who could be involved in the Central Baltic, I will certainly encourage them also to take part. And Personally, I also have another role. I'm a chairman of the board in a small but very active municipality called Pyhtää in southeastern Finland, and I will use my position to encourage also the municipality to take a more active role and maybe cooperate with partner municipalities in Estonia and Sweden, perhaps to invent something new. And yes, I think that's about it.
Excellent. And of course, we only managed to take a small glimpse into a few of our almost 30 participating regions. So I think all others should, I guess, take Toni's inspiring and encouraging words also, and start thinking about these cooperation possibilities, and knowing that that there are organizations and people out there willing to cooperate behind this screen of yours today and in general. So thank you, Toni, for you participating here. And I think we will slowly roll deeper into the program. Toni was already getting into the practicalities and kind of what a potential beneficiary might think about. So we will be moving in that direction in just a few minutes. So thank you, Toni.
Thank you.
And indeed, with those steps and processes, we completed essentially the programming. This summer, the Joint Programming Committee wrapped up the program content, and then the official approval processes have happened this autumn, which means that we have now arrived at a very complete and ready program draft. So we have arrived. But what is this program? Where have we arrived? That's what we will be looking at next. I will be joined on these empty chairs by my colleagues, my 4 colleagues whom we will start going through the program in more depth with. So please meet our program managers, Ylari, Samu, Laura, and Normunds. And together with them, we will spend the next while looking deeper into the program. Still a little bit reflecting on the programming process. I think each program with a limited time frame, limited budget, has to quite carefully consider where to intervene, what to focus on, so that we can actually reach some results. I happen to know that our new program has seven program objectives within 4 wider thematics, and we will look at each of those one by one. But before we get to the details of those program objectives, I would turn to Ylari, because you were part of the programming team. You were part of this whole basically 2-year process. And maybe to start us off, maybe you could tell about some key principles that were important in the programming and when setting up the program.
Yes, those principles, of course, are not new ones, which is, I think, important to emphasize. And some of those have been already mentioned by Merik and Philippe and Toni. But indeed, we have tried to use certain principles which are originated from the mandate letter from a member state, and also have believed actually in improving our program over policy cycles in a way that those principles are not new, but we have tried to do the improvements in the new program design based on those. And if to briefly go them through, perhaps the first and most important has been indeed being focused and relevant, and that is related to the our program area and the size of the territory and also the population of our program area, and that is certainly long time period when we are operating up to 10 years, and our resources to invest into projects are not huge. As it was already mentioned, we knew at the beginning that we are having a budget around 100 million euros. So, and that led us very clearly to the conclusion that we have to take this focusing or being focused even further. So in identifying the niches where we intervene, which are named the program objectives. So we try to be really specific and clear about those. And at the same time, balancing it with relevance. So those specific niches to intervene were also relevant to be priority teams for our participating regions and member states. Next, perhaps equally important principle we have applied has been the result orientation and measurability, meaning that all those our intervention teams, 7 program objectives, have been equipped with result indicators, and result indicators have target values, and that is the framework for us of also choosing the best projects which are to bring us the results on a program level. So this is about the result orientation and measurability. And then the third important principle or aspect is related to really cross-border value added. So this is of course covered in those program objectives or intervention teams which are identified, but at the same time also we want to make sure that each project which is going to be implemented has those joint elements for cross-border cooperation, justifications, why to do things together. So this is a cross-border value added. We are not alone. There are programs and activities on a national, regional level, also on European level, wider Baltic Sea level. We have tried to identify this Central Baltic right scale, optimal scale action by defining the program objectives. And last but not least, already very much in the implementation side or project implementation and the project implementation side is a principle related to being cost efficient and also continuing with simplification. So we are to continue with two-step application process and also are going to use more simplified cost options and unit costs and all those things to make our life as a program implementers and the project partners' life easier.
We will get back to many of those themes during this session, but I would take you deeper then into the themes of results and cross-border cooperation and relevance. One of our program objectives is dealing with SMEs and development of the SMEs, and that's a theme that has been already in the previous period. So what in this program objective is new or different for the new period?
The program objective 1, which is about the small and medium-sized companies export support or more export by Central Baltic companies. Well, first, it has to be said that to a large extent, considerable extent, we are going to continue work to support Central Baltic companies, small and medium-sized companies' efforts to enter to new markets in a similar way as we have been working in the current program. And those new markets are defined as the markets outside of European Union, European Free Trade Area. But of course, the world around us has changed. For example, Great Britain is not anymore in European Union and is nicely eligible market to be targeted by our projects. Also, the Corona has caused a lot of changes into the international trade. So there are needs for new methods and ways of working in supporting the trade. And perhaps also we are not so much in the design of the new export program objective emphasizing the meta cluster building as such. We are even more clearly emphasizing the efforts to really to get participating small and medium-sized companies to achieve sales in targeted markets.
Okay, and to just be really clear, I think you said it, but the result that projects should achieve is what?
Is really to help Central Baltic companies to achieve sales on targeted new markets outside of European Union and European Free Trade Area.
That sounds fairly straightforward. But how does a project reach that? Do you see differences in the export markets or the companies they work with?
The overall logic is following that we are not going to work directly with companies, meaning that small and medium-sized companies can't apply directly from program. We are expecting projects undertaken by professional business support organizations who have the capacity and experience on working in supporting export to undertake those cross-border projects. We assume that those partner organizations, which can be export agencies, sectoral associations, chambers of commerce, for example, really know their companies, their needs. They have capacity and interest to work with international projects across borders. And they are able of putting together activity plan, work plan, which is a best mix of possible activities to really take those participating companies to those targeted new markets.
And how does the project know which market to go to?
This is a good question, but it is very much the professional assessment of potential partner organizations. They should know the needs and priorities of potentially participating companies. And also it is including the element of assessing the how realistic one or another market entry would be.
Okay, but it seems very clear listening to you that they really have to do very practical work, result-oriented work, and that of course were the principles that you started with. So I think we will dig further, because I think one field where also Philippe mentioned that practical work is very much needed is of course the theme of environment and resource use. And from there I would turn to Samu, because I understand that the program is working on several fields within the environment, but one very new theme of circular economy solutions. So what is expected from this program objective?
Yes, thank you. That is indeed a new direction for our program, but we are not going towards that direction alone, actually. I think the whole Europe, the EU is going towards circularity and even at least half of the rest of the world also. But we are of course working on a Central Baltic scale, but many different kinds of approaches can be taken here. I like to think circular economy or compare it to building a big cruise ship, which is actually done very close to our office in Turku. And there, well, the ship is basically coming up in this one place, but you know that there is a huge chain of contractors, subcontractors, and everything behind this ready-made product. And I think circular economy is very much a similar thing. If you think about it, you come up with the idea of a product, let's say, then you design it, you plan for manufacturing, manufacture it, then market, sell. And in this new world, you also have to start thinking about what to do with it after you can no longer use it. So this is where the circularity comes in. And I see that our program is also one that wants to make sure that in the circular economy chains, these links are in place, and we can help in that with our funding. And on a more practical level, maybe we want, of course, to reduce waste, reduce the use of virgin materials, and then at the same time, naturally increase recycling and reuse of materials. So that's what our approach is about.
And we talked about SMEs with Ylari. Ylari actually mentioned that SMEs cannot be partners in program objective 1. What about circular economy? Can they be involved there?
Well, we actually have limited their role as partners in that as well, because, well, already the rules of our program or our funding instrument dictate that we cannot directly fund private companies which are in the competitive market. So this is the case. And however, I would say that the private companies are very, very important in this context as target groups. So of course, in the best case scenario, the circular economy projects or other projects as well probably would create preconditions for new and existing businesses for taking on new directions and new approaches.
And new approaches, can that also be, or let's say, how practical can you go? Can there be investments?
Yes, actually there can be investments. We are allowing small scale investments in these topics of circular economy, improved coastal and marine environment, and also under decreased CO2 emissions. So we are talking about pilot type of approaches here. We don't have in the whole program even big money to fund big infrastructure projects, but we would focus more on the equipment type of investments. And of course, as always, investments have to be well justified. They have to be absolutely relevant, contributing to the project results and achievement of those. And of course, then the cross-border aspect is important also regarding investments. So if you have investments, they should have cross-border added value beyond this regular experience exchange and such things.
I think I will take at this point a question from the audience, which we can link nicely to investments and make a bridge of money, because investments cost money and all project activities cost money. The question is, will there be advance payments, or how does the money flow in the program go? Maybe you can mention with a few words the basic principles.
Yes, the basic principle is that there are no advance payments as such, but payments are going out according to the reporting of the project, which happens in 6-month periods as previously also. So this is the approach.
We thank you. Yes, and we will get to a little bit more detail on things related to reporting a little bit down the line as well, I think. So, but this was a good clarification, I think, at this stage. So we said 7 program objectives, and they seem already from what the 2 examples to be quite different in scope. We will move to yet another topic and move to Laura, because as I understand it, one of the program objectives is also support to improved employment opportunities.
Yes, and improved employment opportunities, the new Central Baltic program is taking this approach that we should deliver the real benefit for the less competitive groups. And that is that all projects will need to have activities that involve direct work with the less competitive groups, which would be trainings, which would be work practices, and other things that really directly improve the competitiveness in labor market for these people. And of course, things like strategies, methodologies, plans, those are also welcome, but these are part of the projects which should directly lead to this improved competitiveness for the less competitive groups. And we have defined 3 results for this program objective, and those are improved competitiveness for the less competitive groups and labor market. Number 2 is the new anti-discrimination policies applied in the companies, which should help with supply of the labor market, and at the same time with the employment opportunities improvement. And number 3 is improved entrepreneurship, and this is a measure directly specifically to increase the people's capacities and skills to start new entrepreneurship.
That sounds very wide and very interesting and very relevant, of course. You mentioned about less competitive groups. How do we know whether you are in a less competitive group?
Right. Well, the less competitive groups are defined rather precisely, and at the same time, there are also left some space to other less competitive groups that may be present in the regions. And to name them, we have the less competitive groups as follows. So these are young people under 25. These are pre-retirement age people, the retired people. Then we also have immigrants and the people with special needs, and the other less competitive groups, which means that the project applicants can define their own less competitive groups and justify that and describe in the project applications. And we would always see how the particular group is less competitive and why it needs more assistance to access the labor market. And specifically speaking about the entrepreneurship activities, the less competitive groups there are defined as the young people and pre-retirement and retirement age. So the less competitive age groups as it's defined in the program document.
And I'm quite sure that, well, you already mentioned about results. So, there were three, let's say, blocks of results. So can you just maybe still like, what is the expected result, or how does this result orientation show in practice in this program objective?
Yeah, right. Well, that means that each project will have to choose one of those results and show specifically how the project is achieving their project results and contributing to the program results. And basically that means that, for example, a project that focuses on improved employment opportunities needs to show how many people of less competitive groups will have this improved opportunities and improved competitiveness. And the same applies for other two as well. So if it's about companies and anti-discrimination policies, we will need to see how many companies, which companies have introduced those new anti-discrimination measures. And about entrepreneurship, again, it's the number of people with names and surnames who have benefited and became more entrepreneurial.
So it's really counting numbers, showing real results. And I think like Toni and Philippe, actually, I think both mentioned that then these are the results that can be shown and promoted later on in the region. So that sounds like that we will have something to report further on.
Certainly, and
Yeah.
that's very important for a project to be successful, to have this direct focus on these people, companies, and people with increased entrepreneurship.
We also have a little bit already talked about partners and who can be a partner. Who do you think are relevant partners in this program objective?
You mentioned relevance, and relevance is the very key word here, because we will be looking very carefully at partner relevance for all program objectives. And basically that means that it's important to see for us that the proposed partner has the clear mandate to implement the project. So they have the resources to provide the project results as planned, and they also will be in the game for long term. So the project results are kept up and used later on as well, where it's applicable. Well, speaking about employment objective, the relevant companies and organizations that we would expect would be organizations with direct experience in the labor market and the ones who have been working with these target groups. So it could be employers organizations or employee organizations, also organizations and NGOs representing the disadvantaged groups. Yes, and not so much, we are not foreseeing this for private companies, it's for the public organizations bringing benefit to the people and to the companies needing employees.
So I understand when you picked up on my word, and I will repeat that then. So I understand the relevance of partners is something that is not only relevant for your program objective, but for all of projects always across the board.
Definitely, definitely for all program objectives, we will be looking for this capacity to provide results and keep them up later on.
Excellent. That sounds like a word to keep in mind for everyone then. A little bit on a broader scale still, now that we got onto these bigger topics, I have seen from, and I think our applicants will be reading in our guidance, there will be lists of indicative actions. How is one to approach that list? Does it mean that each project has to tick all the boxes, or how does it go?
No, not at all. Actually, they should not tick all the boxes, but what should be done is to look at these lists of activities that are defined in the program document and pick and choose. It's up to the applicants to see which activities and which particular mix of activities will bring their project results about in the best and most efficient way. So designing this mix of activities is really the responsibility of the applicant. The program is very focused, but there's still quite a lot of room for the applicants as well to see how to achieve these results in the best way.
Excellent. And there is a question from the audience, which I think is very relevant, and we will take that to you. So you mentioned these 3 possible results, and the question is, should a project address all these 3 aims, or pick one, or how?
Pick one is the very easy answer, because this is part of the focused approach of the program, that we pick one specific result and bring that to existence. And that should be a very good achievement and a good project result, and also program result later on.
Excellent. We will be moving on, but I also spot through the chat that we clearly have a lot of relevant and interested organizations, and I have seen also questions and discussion on partnership search. So I think without that being the key thing that we will cover here, but certainly finding these relevant partners is definitely a big task for potential applicants wanting to work with any of our program objectives. So I think you can also use this opportunity, and we will tell you more about also this later. I would then move on and maybe return Samu to you. The program objective on improved coastal and marine environment. If someone has been involved in Central Baltic as long as I or several others, they might say, well, this is a familiar topic. Isn't this something that has been done before?
Indeed, yes. And regardless of all the achievements that have been made in this front, improving the Baltic Sea and our central Baltic area also in that sense, there is still a lot of work to be done. And this thing has been a high priority for our member states and Åland. And that's why we are still continuing this topic also in the new program. And we also, you mentioned in the previous context the indicative list of activities. Here we have listed some activity types, of course, but for the real activities we are also still referring to the national water management plans, national marine strategies. So this is basically where the project potential applicants will find the relevant contents to focus to. And this is talking a lot about sea and coast, but I think one important thing to remember sorry, is that actually the most important activities usually are done on the land side, so in the catchment areas and not in the sea. Important thing to remember. But the sea-based activities, land-based activities, both are okay for us. No problem there. We only hope that the applicants then go and choose the activities that have the most potential to improve the state of the sea as such.
Talking about the sea, there's a question I see from the audience related to the sea and the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea. Is this program objective specifically linked to that, or can you maybe reflect on how, in general, the program is linking to the EU's BSR, as we call it?
Yes, this program objective, of course, but also all the other program objectives. So this is simply put, we are contributing to the EU's BSR on the wide front of the whole program. So we have connections to the EU's BSR objectives, and we link there and provide content and results also for that strategy.
So projects working for this program objective and almost all others will also then contribute to the EU's BSR, is what you're...
Yes, they will, that's correct. And they will also have to explain their contribution in the application form. So that is one thing that we are asking.
Okay. Excellent. And I think you mentioned a very exciting word, application form. We will get back to the application form and when that can be expected later on. Okay, moving again on and a little bit physically moving as well. I'm coming back to Ylari. So I know that another theme is about new business development. What are we going to do with scaling up new companies? What is happening here?
Indeed, we actually continue also our work in regard of new business support. In the current program, we have been working with trying to bring into life new joint Central Baltic companies. And that has meant in a real life very much the work with target group, which have been mostly teams, wannabe entrepreneurs, not yet established new companies. Now in a new program, as you said, we are targeting the scaling up new companies. We are a little bit shifting the target group towards established new companies. So in the new program, we look forward for joint projects by professional business support organizations to work with already established new companies, which have ambition, but have encountered in their development the challenge related to scaling up their activities. And of course, important word scaling up is here. Scaling up is understood and defined as achieving the next relevant level of development in the company's development process. It can be expanded team, it can be expanding out from a home market. It can be developing the new product or service. It can be attracting the investment. It can be also going public, like having an IPO. All those statuses are understood as scaling up, and we are looking for projects which are, again, similarly to export program objective, undertaken by relevant, experienced business development organizations, which represent the best possible mix of activities to really support those new established companies to achieve those scaled up statuses.
You were talking about companies. You were also talking maybe about the stage in which a company is. Can teams that are not yet registered, can they count into this program objective?
Theoretically, yes. Especially nowadays, we know that in certain sectors or in certain fields of activity, business creation is very fast, and also the going through the different phases in the development can be really fast. In that sense, of course, the teams can potentially be also the beneficiaries, but I would think that in real life, the most projects will still work with already established new companies.
There's a question from the audience, which we will ask you, Ylari. Is it a good or a bad thing to have partners who worked in the previous Central Baltic period already?
I think that is certainly something which gives, I would think, partners already the understanding and the experience working across borders. There is no automatically positive or negative aspects towards new projects. What we are looking for is a new impact, new results. And of course, that would mean that we would like to see the new projects and project partners working with new companies, benefiting companies. But in addition to that, all our good, strong project partners from a current program are welcome with new project ideas, with new results, potentially contributing to the program results.
So I think, again, the word relevance can be summarized.
And new impact, new results.
New impact. And on that, so maybe to wrap up, the expected result in this program objective is? Certain
number of new companies who achieve their scaled up status.
Okay, so again, we are expecting to see clear, countable numeric results together with quality, of course. Clear. Counting numbers, we also want to count decreased numbers of CO2 emissions. Is this true?
This is correct. We are aiming at decreased CO2 emissions as well, and this is quite descriptive, I would say, of our program. We say what we mean. We say what we want to achieve. So that's very, very clear, and we want to be clear with that. And in this program part, we want to improve transport nodes and transport areas, and help to create mobility solutions in large and small urban areas as well in their transport systems. And well, the key word is urban here, but I would also stress that the urban hubs, as you know, are also servicing the hinterland areas. So in that sense, the rural areas are counted in as well. So it's not only fully focused on urban areas. And still to mix a bit about this vocabulary, nodes and modes and stuff, we also are focusing on the improvements in intermodal mobility. And by that, we mean that in an urban hub, let's say, you can come in from train to a bus, from bus to another bus to get home, or from bus to a bicycle maybe. So these kind of solutions we are also looking for. One thing that one must remember is that under this programming period, we are not focusing on transport corridors, which means that we are not funding projects which would be dealing with the traffic between the countries. So this is solely focused on the urban transport systems and their hinterlands. And regarding target groups, we are targeting again public non-profit organizations also here. But in this entity, I think we also see that there might be a relevance to have private organizations, private companies involved in these projects. But again, we come to this term relevance, and that is very important. They need to be necessary for the project. They need to have specific contribution, and also we all the time are avoiding this messing up the competitive market with our support. So important things to remember when planning to involve private companies.
Yeah, maybe I will talk, maybe Ullari wants to mention, or maybe Samu, on private companies. I understand there's a change when it comes to state aid and how to take into account maybe participating companies. Maybe this is more for Ullari. Do you want to mention a few words about what our projects should take into account there?
It should be more simple, at least for the participating, benefiting private companies. But there will be still the partners' obligation to count the cost of services provided to target group companies. But we are going to use the different framework of state aid, and that would mean that up to the accumulated cost of 20,000 euros per benefiting private company. Everything will be just so simple, and that in our estimation is rather sufficient amount of potential support or the services towards single unique company. And there is no bureaucracy involved for the companies in regard of that. And also the only thing for the partner organizations is track on the cumulative value of the services cost.
I will actually take the possibility of talking to you a little bit further, because we have a question from the audience for which you, I think, are the best expert. So the question is in relation to tangible results in the field of new business development. Is it only new companies, or can also the result and the counted thing can be new products or concepts developed?
So they are together actually, in a way that if this new product or service is developed, then we count it as the company has achieved that, and numerically that is one company who has achieved the level of the scaled up status. So in that sense, inside of counting the companies who have achieved the scaled up statuses, of course, there are also the potentially numerically counted new services and products. And that is certainly interesting, but we have used the approach that while setting the result indicators, we try to be specific, and we try to use wherever possible as few as possible result indicators, and that gives the clear direction and focus. And it also gives us a possibility to realistically measure what program achieves. At the same time, we are not thinking that this is the end of the road or a journey. We also think that there are other positive things which are to follow, that the companies will earn more revenues, will become more profitable, will have more highly paid jobs, will pay more taxes in the future. But for the sake of measurability, we try to keep it simple and focused. We count in that specific case unique companies who have achieved the scaled up status, which can be the new product.
So we stick to the results defined, but we also welcome side effects and added value, and synergies, which can be a nice bridge to a question actually to any one of you. The question is, how will the program take into account larger policies and priorities on maybe government level? The Commission Action Plan on the European Pillar of Social Rights has been specifically mentioned, but I think there are several other.
Yes, I can maybe here draw the card of the magical application form again. So this will be one thing that is asked from the applicants, how they will contribute to the larger strategies, and the one is also, of course, one of them. So we are also monitoring the contributions to national things and apart from the cross-border issues.
And maybe to add to Samu, I think also very important, which is often forgotten, is that to take into account those very general and important strategies on national or European level, the first step is to make sure that program priorities, objectives are in line with those. And during the programming process, I think we have tried to make sure that our program objectives, as they are defined, contribute to national, regional, and also over European level strategic documents.
And thinking about all these levels, one of the things where these levels really come into play is public services. And here I think we turn to Normunds. So I understand the 7th objective in the program is improved public services, which does sound promising to all of us being citizens of this region.
Yes, indeed. There is a last but not least program objective aimed at improving public services for citizens. As you may know, there are a lot of public services we use every day. That's not the case actually here. The case is, what do we expect from those public services? So we expect them to be reliable, efficient, easy to use, to bring some kind of added value for us as a users. From the perspective of the cross-border public services, I suppose we expect them to be a bit harmonized and synchronized across the borders, so that in cases when you travel for work or to learn or for tourism, the services you expect in other countries are about the same or at least similar. Unfortunately, this is not the case, and this is not the standard in the European Union and nor in the Central Baltic region for until now. So, and the reasons behind are many. Those might be some administrative or historical or any kind of other development reasons. Even a language may play a role here. But nonetheless, and I'm very excited to tell that this is where the Central Baltic program comes into game. So actually, any public institution of local, regional, or even national relevance is welcome to apply for funding. So to say, to create those joint public cross-border services, or to improve the existing ones, so they are synchronized, they are harmonized in a way, so that for us, the end users, it is easier to use them in our everyday life.
Are there some examples immediately coming to mind? It's a very broad field, I imagine.
Oh, the field is quite broad, actually. In this program objective, actually, any kind of thematic field is relevant. So to speak about any examples, I can rely on my own experience. As you may know, I am coming from Latvia, but The Central Baltic Program office is physically located in Finland, in Turku. So what does it mean for me that actually before joining I need to have this all hustle and bustle of settling in Finland and applying for work permissions and applying for tax permissions, and it's quite surprisable, but still a lot of those things are not harmonized and done the same way between the countries. I mean, the practice in Latvia is completely different than here in Finland, and somehow it is not easy to navigate those differences, and a lot of services are still be able to receive only in person. So which actually means that there is a room for digitalization as well of those public services. So yeah, I think there's actually a room for a lot of improvements if we speak about public services and how to make them harmonized and synchronized across the borders.
One group maybe of organizations relevant for this region is small organizations, local organizations even. So I understand that special effort has been made to ensure that also these organizations feel welcomed in the program. And I think your field or your program objective is really designed to take this into account.
Yes, exactly. And actually the program objective on not only this one, but all the other program objectives as well are quite clear, made clear and focused in a way. So, and that not only those experienced sharks from the European territorial cooperation programs from the past, but as well those newcomers can apply. And the process is quite simple, starting from applying and then to implement the project as well and to report the achievements. But what I maybe would like to stress here is these so-called small projects. So comparing to regular ones, these are even more simple to apply, and then the assessment is done in a lighter manner. It is done in a bit faster way, so the decision for funding is made at a bit sooner than for those regular projects. One thing those you should keep in mind is that a small project is defined by both, so in terms of the program budget and the duration of the program of the project, which means that any project below a bit of more than 200,000 euros and not exceeding 18 months in implementation can be a small project.
I understand, because we have been talking about results, so results and indicators and numeric values also apply to the small projects.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Sure. Indicators apply both for small projects and regular projects. And I don't know, there have been a lot of examples mentioned here, but maybe just to stress once more that for each of the program objective, two kinds of result indicators are relevant, and those are the output indicators and result indicators. So you may ask, what is the difference between those two?
Yes, and why are they needed at
yes,
all?
why
Come
are
on.
they needed? So the case is that actually these indicators help to stay focused. This is the one point to mention. The other one is that they are with the help of them, you can actually easily to communicate what the program has achieved as well, and what your project has achieved. So for example, if we speak about those output indicators, then these are actually the direct outcomes of your project, your project results. Be those like those joint public services created, like for the program objective, where you focus on improvement of public services or other issues like number of companies supported or number of persons with those not so good situation in the labor market. And then there are those result indicators, and these are like the benefits of your project, not only the outcome, but the benefit of the outcome of the project, meaning that and for whom as well. So it is very relevant for your organization to know whom you actually are targeting. So therefore the result. And
so you maintain that they are important.
Definitely.
Okay. Linking, I think, results and the whole implementation and the way to get to those results. Ylari in the very beginning mentioned that simplification has been a key word in the programming. Maybe I turn to Laura on this. Can you elaborate a little bit further? How does this simplification manifest itself? What does it mean to the project partner of any of these program objectives?
Well, the first one I would like to mention is the simplified cost options. And I have to say that we like the simplified cost options, and specifically for the reason that if we get used to them, we use them correctly, it should save a lot of work on reporting and let us concentrate on what's important, on achieving the project results. And I have to also say that since we like them, we have included quite a lot of the new simplified cost options in the new programming document. And to name a few, well, first, we may all know that there are three kinds of the possible simplified cost options. So these are the lump sums, the flat rates, and the unit cost. And to have some examples from the new program, we will have a lump sum for project preparation costs. Then we will have unit costs for the staff costs. And we also use flat rates, for example, for the office and administration costs. So, and then there are also more. So it's very important when planning the project to understand how the simplified cost options work in the Central Baltic program, and consider that in the very beginning of the project and planning, because later on, I have to say there are also some caveats about using these. We have to remember that once they are defined, they cannot be changed and adopted later on. And of course, by definition, there can be that some partners are overcompensated or some are compensated a bit less. But as long as there is very good planning in the beginning and we are ready for that, that will give anyway better predictability for the project finances and much easier reporting. So to my mind, this is the most important simplification that should bring a lot of benefit to the beneficiaries and everybody working for the program.
That is a really good bridge, I think, to what will happen next. We managed to go through some of the main elements of the program in general, touched on some basic words, keywords, and basic principles, which I hope we repeated enough for those words to catch on. I know there are some more questions coming in and we don't have time to resolve them all, but under next steps, I think we will give answers also on how to get answers to those questions. So I will thank you for interesting points and good information made, and we move forward, because let's not forget we are in the launch of the new program. So we will now reflect for a while on what are the next steps and how do we proceed and how do we take all this information that we have heard so far into action. So what do you need to know about the upcoming months? Well, being a launch, we are happy to share the details and the information of the first call today. We have a time and a plan for the first call, and I am trying to get the right introduction here, and I think the right introduction will be the bridge from what Samu was mentioning and what Laura was mentioning. So as of this very moment, you can go to our website and you will find our very first version of the program manual on the website, as well as a guide for applying for a project. So all these contents, all these principles that we have been discussing so far are explained in those documents. And this is really the time when I really urge you, maybe not on this exact minute, but as soon as you click out of this meeting, to really start reading those documents and start putting all these keywords and important principles into action. Because time is flying, and the moment from launch to actually submitting your application will be shorter than you think. I will also still push the limits a little bit and not give dates quite yet, but I will say that when you go to the website, you will already find the links to register for applicant seminars, and you will be able to start booking consultations with my colleagues, really getting into the details of the content and the practicalities of your projects. There was a question I saw about whether we will use the EMS in the future as well. No, we will use the big brother of EMS. We will use GEMS for submitting applications in the first call of the Central Baltic Programme 2021 to 27, starting from the 10th of February and closing GEMS on the 31st of March, this coming spring. So I think that answered several questions. Being an EU program and coming from a very complex background with a lot of stakeholders and decisions involved, I will have to say a small disclaimer. So the materials that we publish are the first version, and the call dates I announced are our current plan. We still always have to keep in mind that we are only now submitting the program document to the European Commission for approval. As I have mentioned actually many times already today, I have been involved in the previous programming periods, and I know that the Commission always comes with pages of questions and clarification requests. So to be honest, for me and my team and for the stakeholders, there will still be several updates and quite a lot of work ahead. And what we are able to announce today is based on the national approved program document. But let's not allow reality to spoil the festive mood too much. I will bring us back to launch and happy thoughts and celebrations. So one of the things that I have mentioned is the website, where you will find all of the information, all of the documents, all of the dates. And when you enter the website, you will notice, if you have been on our website before, you will notice that we have a new website. So that's another thing that we are launching today and celebrating today, and building on really comments and feedback again from our stakeholders. So we really have tried to listen to the needs and wishes. So centralbaltic.eu has a new, fresh image and new content leading you towards the first call. I said it and I will say it again, time is running. We have had questions about partners, who to involve, what to think about, keywords, and you have seen the faces and the names of my colleagues. So really the time now is to move from this more one-sided launch event to really interactive, two-sided communication with both our national contact points and with our program managers. So the colleagues who will be there to guide you through the whole application process and leading you further. So my wish really is that that we stay in touch and you get in touch with my colleagues to continue the discussions that already started today in the chat. At this stage, it is time to, I think, take a small breather and to just enjoy the fact that the work of 2 years is completed. We have done this together. There have been pandemics, there have been different opinions, there have been paperworks and what kind of challenges there haven't been, but we did it and we did it together and we're ready to launch. So for a short moment, let's just let it all sink in and enjoy.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, I say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I'll say it's all right. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I'll say it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, I'll say it's all right. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I'll say it's all right. Little darling, it feels like the ice is slowly melting. Little do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I'll sing, it's alright. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I'll sing, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright.
With that, we, I think, are ready to thank everyone and to thank all the regional, national, the stakeholder experts and everyone who has been involved. It has been a long ride, but a successful one, and it's all right. And I will leave you in the hands of our very capable regional representatives who will tell you how to go further.
Ryhdytään hommiin.
Nu är det dags att kavla upp ärmarna och börja jobba.
Ķeramies pie darba.
Nu kör vi!
Hakkame pihta.